Hi.
Oh, we're live. I'm like not even paying attention. Hello, everyone.
Welcome to our first live stream of which will be our first podcast episode, theoretically, our first new podcast episode. Monica, this is great.
Yeah, so we are Monica Leonel and Russell Novelty, creators of Kickstarter Accelerator, and really Russell's the Kickstarter expert here, but we've put together a program for it as well. And I guess the program is basically sponsoring our podcast.
Sure. Yeah. I think sponsored by KickstarterNovel.com is a good, and we're still kind of figuring out what we're doing, what we're going to do for the show. But we want to talk about Kickstarter and basically increasing your book sales and through Kickstarter and then eventually other means as well. And thought we would start today dissecting my latest campaign for the Godsverse Chronicles that raised north of $15,000. And this is one of my favorite things to do, moratoriums. And Monica is going to probably ask some questions, and we'll talk about how we're going to move that forward into the launch of our new of the series when it goes onto retailers, which is something that people always talk to us about. Like, cool, I have a Kickstarter, but like, what do I do now to actually get this live on retailers and successful on retailers?
Yeah, it's definitely something we see a lot, where we see where people like they have a great Kickstarter campaign, and then over time, yeah, they just kind of lose, all the excitement and the momentum of that kind of starts to dissipate as the campaign, gets further and further into the past. And it's like one of the things we teach in the accelerator is like just how to have a good campaign. But then it's like, well, how do I feel this good like all year round, not just like every 6 months when I'm able to do a campaign. So let's talk about the Godsverse. So one thing is that it went over 15K. It's really your most successful novel project that you've ever done on Kickstarter. So what are like a couple things that you think made it very successful?
So I'm good. I know that if you're listening to this, you're not going to be able to see my screen, but I'm going to share it anyway, just so I can talk a little bit about the books and generally what's going to happen. And I'll try to make this as oh,
here I am in charge of this.
Yes, I'll try to make this as auditorily interesting as possible. So I think the biggest difference if you take this campaign, well, the interesting thing about this campaign is that even though we hit almost $16,000, we had significantly less backers than the previous two novel campaigns that we've done, or really any campaign we've done since the last Godsverse Chronicles campaign. And the last one we did in January was, I think, 375 backers, right around there. Let me check. 373 backers. And then the book we launched previously to that, the series, had 312 backers, but they had significantly less funding, partially because there's 11 books in this series. And plus there were 3 graphic novels in this series, which led to a lot of people buying all of it. But one thing that I did this campaign that I didn't do any other campaign is I did audio commentary for all of the books. And so it wasn't super long. There was like half an hour for each book, but across 12 books, that bumped people instead of spending $55 to get 11 books because one of them came free in every pledge. Some people were spending $110 on all of that and the audio commentary. And people ask me all the time, is audio commentary worth it? And I enjoy doing audio commentary. I enjoy listening to my own voice because I'm narcissistic like that. But I have you can see that there's 8 backers that spent $55 additional dollars. So that's almost $500 for that. And it took me a couple of hours to do each one. Plus, there was someone that did 21, someone that did a couple of people that did 13. Oh, sorry, that's odd. So there's like, you're looking at maybe $1,000 or so. Plus, then you talk about people who bought all of the all the complete digital tier at 230. And when you bought this, you got the audio commentary for free. So I saw people back at 110 and then go up and back at
Yeah.
230. And so you're looking at maybe like an extra $500 to $1,000 of money from this campaign just from that. And then you combine upon that the last campaign was only 3 books and this was 4 books. My
Yeah.
hope was to multiply I like divided by 3 and then multiply by
Right.
4, and it's about this amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just all of those factors all went into making this a more profitable campaign, even though it had less backers than the previous 2. Really, any
Yeah.
book that I've had since the last campaign.
Yeah, and it's significantly less backers. Like that's like over 100 fewer backers than you had like just a couple months ago on Dragon Scourge, right? Like 373 versus 265.
Yeah.
So I mean that's, like I think that being able to stack those rewards, like yes, having more books, like just having 4 books versus 3 like the last one, but then also having just so much backlist to be able to sell to new people and to people who probably, like, there are people who bought this twice, right? Like
There were
without
several people.
question.
There were several people who emailed me and said, "I'm buying it all again because
Right.
now you've improved." Like we had all of the covers we're now doing a whole
Mm-hmm.
different slate of covers.
Right.
And who bought all 12 books because I now have changed the numbering and changed the lettering and changed the interioring, all
Right.
of that formatting to make it all read better as a series. And I had people say they spent $300 just to get like all of those books. So yeah, there's definitely some people who bought in again.
Yeah, it's just like when publishers change the covers of a book mid-series or something, which like people say it's a money grab, but I get it because like you have a long series that's like on its 7th or 8th book, probably in traditional publishing, that's like at least 5 years later, and
Yeah.
publishing trends really do change. So, but people buy this stuff again. Like I know I've bought like Twilight like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Or like
Well,
the
and
any series that I really like, I've bought it like several times now.
we did a much different interior treatment. So like we made these planet guides and
Mm-hmm.
timelines that we had not had before. I completely reproofed all of the books.
Mm-hmm.
I hired another proofreader to do a pass. I reformatted all of the books and they made it look like a series, because what happened is originally we had the middle 4 books, and Death and Doom and Hell and Ruin, came out first, and they were supposed to be in different series. So so they all had different interiors, and then we brought the final 3, and Conquest, Darkness, and Chaos together, and they all kind of felt the same. And so when we came back in, it really did feel like, oh, like this is now a series. It wasn't a series when I first did it. And I went through and there were pieces of like and Death had a lot more cursing than the previous other books, and so I dropped that down because
Mm-hmm.
it was very drastically different. I
Right.
did some editing passes on it. Like I did a lot of extra work on this series based upon what people had told me before that they liked. And so yeah, they and it was, so it was, I mean, it wasn't just the cash grab, but I would be lying if I said I didn't readjust all of the covers and do all this interiors, hoping that some people would buy all of the books again. And
Yeah.
that is what ended up happening. And like I bought all of the books again, and they just look so much nicer when they say book 1,
Right.
book 2, book 3. Like they all are kind of series locked. It's just a nicer experience overall.
Yeah, and I think it's like, I mean, the nice thing about Kickstarter is that if it were me and I just wanted the books again, I would just think like it's cool. Like I've been on the journey with this book series, really. Like I've been a part of this all along, and like my early investment in the series helped my later, helped the series become what it is. So like I would kind of want the finished thing, which actually you have another iteration of it. And I wasn't sure whether to, so I'm just gonna tell you something that I wasn't sure if I should even tell you because I don't want you to be disappointed. But I was looking at your campaign for the Gods Verse. I didn't end up backing it because I want the new covers. And I'm just like, I really hope, I mean, like I'll buy them from retailers too, but I was like, I do really want to read this series. I kind of hope you'll do another campaign with the new covers. Maybe that's crazy, but
I was thinking about doing we're talking about doing the retailer covers, and what
right.
happened was so this is the Kickstarter exclusive cover from our original cover artist, but we did a mastermind together earlier this year, and the people said you should really get like covers that are more retailer centric covers
Right.
that will work better on retailers. And I'd already had all these covers, so I was definitely going to do this campaign with these covers, especially because people had bought 7 other books.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
I'm definitely doing this campaign.
Right.
So like, I'm not going to make them buy all of these other books, but
Right.
this is the same cover, which is the retailer variant cover like that we're going to do. And so I have been considering doing a very small, like 1 week, 10-day campaign just for this to get signed, because I don't sign books like that get on retailers. So the only chance to get them signed is by me. And I know some people did not buy during the campaign because they emailed me and said like, the world is ending. I'm like not buying your books because I'm trying to just be alive. So I know it was kind of this like, I was not intending to do these new books,
Look at
but
this. I don't know if you've seen the comments, but oh dear Lord, I now need the new covers. Why oh why?
See,
like, that's what we're saying.
And
we got
needed but I needed to do the old covers. Like I did
right.
not think that it was fair to
No, and it's not. Yeah.
make people buy, especially because like, and everything from End Death to and Chaos was already out, and like
Right.
so that people had bought them. Like it's not like, and most people did not buy again. Most people did not go out and buy again, but some people didn't. And so those people that didn't would have had like these very odd looking covers that were at the beginning of their series. And I didn't, I'm like a cover. I'm very into covers. So
yeah, no, I could not have mixed covers. Like,
yeah,
nah.
exactly. And like, I hate it when people do like different sizes or different color weight and paperweight.
Yeah,
like I just
like
like
no.
you made a commitment, get to the end of it. And so I do think that probably at some point next year I'm going to do like, some people are going to want those specific covers and those new interiors. I'm redoing all of the interiors for the retailer release as well, to make them more
like match the cover. Yeah.
And I mean, this is one of the things about what I talk about with Kickstarter all of the time is like, you do exclusive covers for Kickstarter. Like that's one of the reasons that people will buy the Kickstarter. Like if you're just like, oh, this book has been out for 5 years or something. Well, like if you make an exclusive cover for it, some people will come along for that ride. And a lot of people will have not bought. Like I tell people all of the time also, like I have a mailing list of 30,000 people, like 200 people bought. That's not even 1% of all of the people on my mailing list bought this thing. So like there's a lot of people who, and this is the most successful one. So it's right around this. Like there's maybe 800 people on my mailing list who've bought this series of books from me on Kickstarter. And that assumes no one has bought multiple times, which I know they have. So it's probably more like 400 or 500 people, maybe 300 people. So like there's a huge amount of people who would come to the campaign with something new. And like, I think these covers are like really very good, evocative Kickstarter covers. But they don't scream Portal Fantasy. And that's the thing, that when you're doing a retailer release, like you have to make it immediately say that is the thing that it is. And like, so for the retailer release, like I think this very clearly says Portal Fantasy from the cover, like, and whereas this doesn't say anything. Like it's probably
Mm-hmm.
says thriller or some kind of thriller, but like it's like a,
It just
and
says pretty. Like
yeah,
that's what it
but
says to me. It's like, all right, it's a
like
pretty cover. Like it's
yeah,
a
and it's
pretty
like
image.
it's evocative. Like it
Mm-hmm.
looks really, it's like a really nice looking thing that like you can be proud to have like on your, but it doesn't scream like that's a portal
Yeah.
fantasy book.
No, it
And so you
doesn't.
have to kind of say, it's like I work in comics, and a lot of times you'll have a variant cover that like
Mm-hmm.
that looks nothing like the genre of the comic book,
Right.
but they just want like a cool, sexy looking cover that like
Mm-hmm.
is done by this artist. And so that's what I
Right.
kind of went into these books for. It's like I want something that you're never going to see on a cover. Like you're not going to, no one's going to make these covers really, because like they don't, especially not with the varied range here, because like most publishers are like publishers and not like some guy who's been trying to learn how to do publishing for 10 years. They like have a plan. So like this was just like I saw a bunch of covers that seemed to go in a theme, and like they look like a cool series, and so I made them. But like
Yeah.
the retailer ones are like so, and you can tell there's the two things that work. This worked really well on Kickstarter, these things, but they are not retail covers, and vice versa. I would bet that if I put these books on Kickstarter, they would not do as well as they would on retailer, because there's just different things that people want on both of
Right.
those.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if you put it on Kickstarter though, and you found like a different audience. Because the covers are just so starkly different. Where the one that like the new ones for they definitely scream Portal Fantasy, but there's also like almost like an epic fantasy edge to it. I know it's not an epic fantasy because it's set in this world, but like it kind of like there are a lot of elements of like moving through moving to fantasy worlds and like all sorts of stuff that like it kind of is an epic fantasy, or it pulls in a lot of threads of epic fantasy. So I don't know, I think you could find like a whole different readership really, or even like convert a different portion of your list just because people gravitate toward different covers.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you can see that when you look at the other campaigns too. I mean, like these are pretty much the same people on my list. The Dragon Strife ones who did 373, and the people that did 265. Like they're pretty much the same people. Like I didn't have like a big growth in my mailing list over
Mm-hmm.
this amount of time. And even back like the last year, you can see 258 for the last Godsverse campaign versus 312 for the Obsidian Spindle. And same thing, very similarly, like within 6 months of each other, the same pretty much audience that and so, and you can see that just vast, that's 70 new people, and
Right.
this was like over 100 new different people. So like a cover
Mm-hmm.
and a genre. And this is why when people say um like, oh, my book failed on Kickstarter, failed at retail, I'm like, well, that's not really like fair because every cover in every series is a way to like all four of these books that you can see on screen, 5, 6 books. Well, not that get your book selling, but every other book here
Right.
was basically the same or a similar audience. And you have
Mm-hmm.
everywhere from 725 to 130 backers
Right.
here. And it's not so like every time you launch a book, it's a new chance to, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can literally see it right here if you're looking at the live screen. Like this is, I mean, I do audience growth stuff and I get
Mm-hmm.
new people, but like I'm not getting 20,000 new people between like these campaigns. And you can just like, so every time you put a book together, comic or novel or nonfiction or whatever, like it's a completely new chance to rebuild and redefine, and also just like redefine by having different kinds of covers from a different cover artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One other thing about the Gods vs. Chronicles, I think this is a pretty natural thing. Is like there were a lot of people who were already familiar with Gods vs. Who probably did not back the campaign, and maybe they have like 5 books already or whatever, and it's just probably because they haven't like read books, right? Like that's
Yeah.
probably the most likely thing because this is the last 4 books in a 12-book series. Um, they're probably like, oh, well, before I back this next campaign, like I should probably even just read the first campaign. So even though, you had fewer backers on this, that doesn't mean you didn't sell a bunch of people on eventually getting the books. It just means like, because they could be like, let me read these books and then I can order them later, or, once
Sure.
I get to that point. So I
Well,
think
and you,
that's the other like
yeah.
reason that you would have fewer backers, that
Well, and you have a
everybody
lot of people from
experiences.
here too, like that bought books
Yeah.
3 months ago or 6 months ago, and like, well, I
Yeah,
haven't read
yeah.
these books either. So
Right.
like a lot of
That's
people,
true.
and a lot of people also, and this is what you'll see in a big series, is people be like, I'm not starting 12 books, but the next time he has one book, I'll buy
Yeah,
that,
I'll
or
buy
like a
that
two,
one. Yeah.
like I'll like, or I'll buy the first book
I
or
agree.
something. Like it's just
Right.
like people like there's like I feel like there's like a bifurcated split that there's very little overlap between people that love long series and want
Hmm.
standalones, and
Right. Or
and
like a
off
trilogy or something,
yeah.
like,
Well, and
yeah,
that's
something
exactly what you
similar.
can see from this. It's just like it was a trilogy that was pretty
Hmm.
much self-contained, and
People loved
like
it. Yeah.
cool. Like people went there and they were like, this is a thing I could only get, or like even this one was like a single piece. And but
Hmm.
even though these are each standalone books, like they are a continuous, like they're part of a tapestry. And so, but like you can see that it still makes a ton of sense to like do a long series, because even like that's $16,000
Right.
versus $12,000 for way more people. So you get
Right.
what you'll get in this one if I did a second one, which I'm not going to, but like maybe it'll be 350, but I'll make 13,000 or
Right.
300, and I'll make like, because the people that are coming in are buying in for the whole shebang
Right.
pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the other thing is the Godsverse Chronicles has made like what, 35, somewhere around 35,000
Something like
over,
that.
cuz you've launched it 3 times, where the trilogy has made, like, it did make, 12 or 13 grand, but this one has made like 35 grand.
Yeah, and if
Makes
you add the
sense.
novels,
There's
it's like,
more books. You've
well,
launched it more times,
well,
like,
and if you add the comics, it's like
oh yeah.
65 or $70,000, and like that. This is why, when people like I was not a signature series kind of human. Like when I
Mhm.
first, like I was like, I'm just gonna
You were
write
like a
standalones.
yeah, you were like a
Yeah, but like
standalone
there's
person.
no doubt that the more times you launch a series and the more money it makes, like the more money you then can invest into that series, and then the more returns you get from that series. It's just like I did this Cthulhu book, and 3 books $100,000. One book was $40,000. Like it just you gain more each time that you do
Mhm.
it, until a series can then like self-generate and self-propagate. And like I could never make another dollar on this series, and like I would have made $100,000 something around that time across all the 12 books
Right.
and 3 graphic novels. And like there's very little that you can do to tell me like, oh well, it does not worth investing in, because like every time I put money into it, like I make more money from it. And
Right.
uh so like I was obviously converted over the course of time to like doing a signature series, and like that it is absolutely essential that you have one in your repertoire, because there's no because it's the best way to like know that you can continuously and consistently make money on like the retailers, which is what I'm going for.
Yeah.
What I'm doing here is creating, I was trying to create a world that then I could like bring to retailers, and then retailers would like, and it would destroy on retailers for the next like at least
Right.
couple of years. But that meant like, when we did the book, this used to be book 5 used to be book 1 in Death, and I was like, no, that doesn't really work for retailers. It's way too weird. I think you may have told me something like
I
that.
told you. I haven't
I don't
read
know,
it though.
but like it like it starts in the apocalypse, and then goes 10,000 years in the future, and jumps planets, and like it's a lot of stuff. And so then I literally designed this series to go back in time to a more simpler
Like,
fantasy
yeah.
structure that was like, oh, I can tell this is an urban fantasy. Like I can tell this is like a globe
Yeah.
trekking book, and then slowly building up to that like super weird moment in like the 5th book. But everything that I've done with this series over time has been, how can I get it to my audience so they can enjoy it, but then make a series that is strong enough to stand on retailers. And, you know, it's like a 1-2 punch. We've been talking about this a
Right.
lot, right? Like it's, you need the Kickstarter, but the Kickstarter gives you funds to do stuff for the series on retailers, which then like build up over time. And I mean, there's no pluckiness that is better than a big ad budget. It's just not. Just like it's just the best. Like if you can have a big ad budget for a series that is successful, and you can eat a big cost per click, you are going to win on retailers generally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I also, I think that, um, you've kind of gotten paid to do like marketing and R&D. Like that's how I think of it. Cause I mean, it's clear that you've done like a ton of R&D on this. And it is kind of like now prepared to go to retailers, with the new covers. It's got like gorgeous interiors now. There's like these intro books that have been created, and it's just like it's so strategic now. And um, and the next step, so let me I feel like I was doing two things at once. So Rick was saying thanks for hosting this. Now we know what creative options are out there to increase revenue, especially on the back catalog. Signed up and bought the book. Oh, cool. Oh, we got another comment. So from Bradley, woohoo, can't wait to tune in. Cool. So yeah, but I mean, I think the thing, the goal is to get to retailers eventually. Like we talk about, and Dean Wesley Smith, he kind of coined this phrase too, or he kind of takes this approach too with it. But we talk about like Kickstarter as a first income stream. And that's really what you've done, Russell. But then it's also like Kickstarter as like, funding, R&D, marketing. So like you're going into a launch now, like there's probably like at least 1,000 people who know about these books in some way, and like for whom, maybe they didn't want to back a Kickstarter campaign, but like a $5 ebook launch is like it's an easy yes for them because they've seen this launch multiple times. So yeah, I just think it's just a really good way to kind of start and grow a big series like this to begin with.
Yeah, and especially for me, my thought is Portal Fantasy is not the most popular genre. So like I'm gonna need more money to get these where I want them to go. And most of the like End Death and Doom and Hell and Ruin did launch on retailers before, but like I've pulled them down. But the other 7 books have never 7 books have never been on retailers before ever. So and I was able to hold that back, and like this money from Kickstarter like has allowed me to basically go into a massive launch, like a 12 book launch without spending $1. Like I'll have built, like maybe if I do the other launch, you'll definitely be profitable, but like, I'll be like on the razor's edge of profitability for this campaign because I had to do all of the books, but I think I have like $3,000 or so of like built up nest egg of just like money I can use. And I've now got 12 books. I don't have 1 book or 2 books or 3 books. And people always say like, what is the thing that you have to do to like, you need really 5 books to break even on advertising. Like generally, like that's at least the rule. So like, if you don't have 5 books in a series, like the odds are against you. But if you can build up 5 books in a series through Kickstarter without ever hitting that Amazon ledge or anything, and then like go to retailers with 5 books and a 5-book plan where you could use the way that Amazon and other like the cliff on Amazon and how other retailers work to like game the system, well, you're going to have a much better shot of at least breaking even on that book. And I know people do this in KU, like they'll write 5, 10, 15 books and release them at the beginning of a month, like try and hit the all-star bonus, but they're still like,
which has gone away.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They've taken a lot of that away just in the last couple months. So
yeah,
not even
but
a thing.
but like they're still paying out of pocket for those book productions too. Like this is like this is not paying. This is, I mean, you're paying for the book production, but like then you're recouping all of that money, and you're able to say, well, it doesn't make sense logically to launch 1 book on Amazon Like it's just
Right.
not almost never going to work. But if I can launch a book on Amazon, on Kickstarter, maybe have a Patreon or a Substack or something to support it, at least break even, maybe get a little bit ahead, then I can go into this launch with like a real chance to compete with all of the big boys and to make the most of the very undulating ways of Amazon and other retailers. And I don't know if it's going to work. Like we're going to see, but that was my I knew that launching one book will not work. So
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, so we're gonna wrap it up here, but just to tell people what's next. So you're gonna go wide with these books, or have you
yeah,
decided to do cave? Okay,
at the I'm going wide starting at the beginning of 2023. At some point, we're going to start going
2023.
wide.
Sweet. Okay. So, what we've been talking about, this is kind of like a behind the scenes insider information. Are we going to announce that now?
Yeah,
Okay.
do it.
So, we've been talking about, since I do a lot of wide stuff and since Russell basically taught me how to do Kickstarter, that we would go the reverse and I would teach Russell wide basically.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about that, and I think we'll probably be doing that to some extent in the Kickstarter Accelerator as well, but also in the Go Wide, Grow Wide Incubator. So we'll be talking about like how would we take this 12 book series, which has many advantages already for going wide, because you need, well, like Russell said, you need more than one book or more than even a couple books. But how would we go wide with this series? Is kind of what we're going to be talking about. Where Russell, he doesn't kind of like purposely doesn't have a lot of books on retailers right now, because he's been doing Kickstarter and building like nest egg and doing R&D on Kickstarter this whole time. And he also, this isn't your only series that can be launched on retailers. You have like 2 or 3 other series as well. Really, the
Yeah.
Obsidian Spindle Saga and the Dragon Scourge trilogy, and maybe some other stuff that can be launched after that. So you're kind of like, you could be like a pop-up author with like 30 books on retailers very quickly, but you're doing it over time. So
yeah, I did the math, and if I start launching January of 2023 and I release one a month, I can have books launching until the middle of 2025.
Yeah,
so
which is crazy
and that
exciting.
It's great. I mean, but like this is the secret thing for like smaller authors and authors who don't have a big backlist, because like if you have a huge audience and everything, Kickstarter is going to work for you. And like this way of like, I'm going to hold my books from retailers because it's not going to be worth it doing it anyway, and build an audience through my mailing list, through viral giveaways, through Story Origin or Book Funnel or whatever. And like, just keep it insular until I'm ready to do it and break even, and slowly build up all of the things that I need to take advantage of the algorithms in the way that you and everyone else says to do it. Because that's the big complaint for a lot of people. It's like, I just don't have enough books to take advantage of the algorithm the way you say. But like this,
that's true.
like Kickstarter is literally like the secret to, or Patreon and Substack, like all of that is like the secret to being able to take advantage of it, because you can hold books back and launch them when you're ready to really make a go of it. So I'm very excited to see what, like whether all of the research that I've been doing is going to be worth it.
All right, cool. So that's a breakdown of the Godsverse Chronicles, probably not the last campaign actually, but the last campaign for a little while at least. Series finisher campaign. All 12 books done. Very, very cool. Huge milestone in the series and for Russell. So thank you so much for listening and for watching. Do you want to add anything else, Russell?
I just will say next week, we're going to be back at the same bat time, same bat channel to talk about the end of Monica's campaign, which is going on right now.
It is.
And I'm very excited for.
And also to talk about the next campaign. So the current campaigns, the fiction one and the next campaign. So we'll be doing that breakdown. And then the next campaign is the Go Wide, Grow Wide Kickstarter campaign, which is for authors. So we will be talking about that too a little bit. So definitely tune in next week. We're going to be streaming at this time every Friday. Not like every Friday, but like most Fridays, and we're going to try to keep it to 20 to 30 minutes we of course went to 35 on this one, but we're going to try to keep it short. So definitely tune in and follow us. All right, that's all. Bye, everyone.